Hello everyone, I am Kumu Suriyachod and this is
Shosita Sangsirishai.
Thank you for joining our discussion on the fascinating tale of the history of Old English.
Yes, indeed. Learning about Old English is a great reason in history, religions, nation building, cultural assimilation, and geopolitics all in one. Kumus, why don't you start by telling our audience the background of Old English?
Of course, Old English is the language of the Anglo-Saxon. It was spoken from the year 450 to 1100. It was the language spoken in England and lowland Scotland. It is the language of Beowulf and Alfred the Great. Anglo-Saxon is the reminiscence of the Roman conquest over the island, and once they left, four tribes formed: Anglos, Saxons, Jutes, and Frisians, who migrated to the land previously occupied by the Celts. There is a little or almost limited knowledge of Old English, since very little written records exist today. The language was greatly influenced by other languages, including Celtics from the Celts, Norse from the North, Latin from the Romans, German from Germany, and Scandinavian that came in from the mainland. Old English is syntactic language. And what this means is that includes many inflections, cases, and genders, all which no longer exist in the modern English we know of today. If anyone has ever studied German, they'll know that there are 7 ways to say the. The modern English we know of today has gender qualifiers such as actor and actress, steward and stewardess, but this is a minimal compared to German or Spanish.
During these 500 to 600 years of the Old English era, there are many changes linguistically, culturally, and politically. Some of the main events during this time include the German invasion starting around year 449. But when actual documents were studied, a lot of historians will categorize it as a migration of an open new land, since war didn't take place. During this time, cultural interaction also causes its writing to evolve over time. As new words enter the English language, brought over from other languages with the waves of migration.
One of the earliest pieces of Old English recorded was called Caedmon Hymn. Caedmon was an Old English herdsman and poet. Here you can see the hymn written in runes-based characters. Here is a version that was translated to a later form of Old English, which has some similar characters to the modern English we know of today.
Nu skulle han hergian, heaven reaches ward, meta the smachte on his modje thunk. Werk ulder farer, swahe wundre wes, etche tristen, or onstella. He erest shop, erven barnum, heaven to rova, hallig shippend. Tha midden yard, man kinnis ward, etche dristen after tjöra firum follan freya allmächtig.
In year 597, Augustine was sent to the Anglo-Saxons by Pope Gregory I to spread the gospel and Christianity. Augustine was embraced and welcomed to the kingdom of Kent by King Ethelbert, who also provided him with protection. This was primarily due to the fact that the king has married a Christian from France, Princess Bertha. This resulted in King Ethelbert converting to Christianity himself. During this time, many noblemen in Kent and other kingdoms began converting to Christianity. In addition to the religious conversion, Christianity also had an influence over the conversion into Roman alphabet from Lund, which was previously adopted as the written characters of the Old English due to the influence of the Norse from the north. Lund began being replaced with more Latin-based characters. Some runes can be used and some are replaced, which also marks a major shift in the language.
About 300 years after Augustine, the influence of Old English began to spread under the growing influence of the English king. During his period, the Vikings began their invasion and tried to exert influence over the island. King Alfred the Great was able to fight off the Vikings, forcing them to retreat back to France and the northern part of Northumbria. This was yet another historical moment that helped save the Anglos and thus the English language. Besides being a great military man, he also was a great educator. After the defeat of the Vikings, the king began to unify the various kingdoms on the island, including part of Northumbria, to make it one nation. He began to establish the standard English and pushed everyone to speak the same language in order to become a stronger nation. He pushed for the utilization of Latin alphabets and also recruited a lot of people from the mainland of Italy and France to educate people on the island.
About 50 years after the death of King Alfred the Great, Ethelred, a monk and bishop, began a major push for standardization of the English language. To his right time, England eventually enveloped the entire main island. After Ethelred, the next great reformer was Ælfric, who was an abbot and an Old English writer. He was a very prolific writer who was skilled at writing sermon, homily, as well as paraphrasing of the Bible. Ælfric set a consistent grammatical system and started using Latin words in the English language. A few examples of a few words that were not originally Old English were butter, cheese, cook, dish, fork, etc.
One of the most influential of the Middle Ages of Beowulf, which is an Old English poem consisting of 3,182 alliterative lines. It is the oldest surviving long poem in Old English. Scholars have estimated that the manuscript was written between year 975 to year 1020 by an unknown writer. The poem is set in Scandinavia. Beowulf, a hero of Geats, comes to the aid of Hrothgar, the king of the Danes, whose mead hall in Herod has been under attack by a monster known as Grendel, after Beowulf slays him. Grendel's mother attacks the hall and is then also defeated. Victorious, Beowulf goes home to Geatland and later becomes king of the Geats. After a period of 50 years, Beowulf defeats a dragon, but is mortally wounded in the battle. After his death, his attendants cremated his body and erected a tower on a heathland in his memory. The full poem survives in the manuscript known as the Novel Codex. It has no title in the original manuscript, but it has become known by the name of Story Protagonist.
Although it has been more than 1,000 years since the establishment of Old English, and we have gone through many iterations of the language, many basic and common words are still in use today. Some examples of these are water, earth, house, food, drink, sleep, sing, night, he, she, you, know, etc. Some other notable words used in Old English also still exist, such as flat, shit, third, ass, and piece, etc. However, care should also be used to avoid using Modern English words learned in Old English, where their meaning had changed, such as with is wife, which originally mean any woman married or not.
Today, we shared with you some history on Old English. We hope you enjoyed our discussion and have come to have a better understanding and appreciation of the complexity of the English language. To sum this up, we want to leave you with a reading of the opening lines of the Beowulf in Old English. Thank you.
What way gar dana in yar dagum feud kuninga thrim ye frunan hutha athalingus ellen fremidon. Oft shield shaving shad and a threatum monegum maigthum meru setla oftea. Egg so de erlas suthan arest worth fashaft funden. Hethas frovra ye bad. Weox under woknum, weorth mundum tha, o that him aig wilch thara umsetindra, over hron rade, huran shulde, gomban yildan. That was god kuning. Them avra was, after Kenneth, young in yardum, thone god sende foked frovre. Fear in tharve onyat, that he drugon aldor laze longe wile. Him thas lifre wodres walden, wordare foriaf. Beo was breme, blad wide sprang, schuldes avra shedilandum in. Swashal young guma, gore wirchan, fromum feo hiftum on fader berme, that hine an ulde eft ye wunien, will ye sithos, thone we cume, leodia lastan. Lof darum shall in magtha yawera man ye theon.